Greetings everyone, Eric here, and welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm just going to kind of cover something that I glossed over in kind of a previous video, where I showed off me basically an animation that I was working on, but I didn't really go into a lot of detail about it. One of the things I had shown was the animation feature, or they showcased a little bit, the animation feature within Clip Studio Paint. Because in their more recent version, they decided to add the ability to make animations. And it's a really good animation method, the way they went. But I'm just going to quickly go over it in this video. I'm going to try and not make this too long. I tried doing this before and I made it too long, so let's try and make this not so long. I actually have something to follow over here. So let's just jump right in, and here we have Clip Studio Paint EX. Yes, this is the EX version, so I'm not sure if this is in the tier down version. I think they call it Pro. I don't know why, but I'm not sure if it's in that version or not. Let me make sure my pen's working. It's working. But yeah, let's just go over really quickly what is the animation feature. Now, the first thing you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to get the new window that is involved in the animation feature. Now, by default, it's usually not going to be on. Sometimes it might. I don't know. I haven't had the default workspace in a while. I always customize my workspace. I even have a custom workspace right here called Comics. That's the one I use. But right here, you'll notice I have one called Animation. And but before I click on that, I'm just going to show you down here. These little two things right here are your new ones. You have your animation cells and your timeline. In fact, I like the fact that timeline has an X on it, because basically what you're looking at is what the timeline looks like, and I'll bring it up here. Let me hit X. Oh wait, nope, you gotta hit do, and then hit X. This is your timeline. Normally, I usually put it down at the bottom, which I'll show you in a minute, but you can put it anywhere. It's just like every other window. You can dock it wherever you want. But yeah, this is the timeline, and it is basically a version. Even in, if you're used to video editing programs, it's not much different than timelines there. They're basically versions of what are known as exposure sheets or X sheets, which basically just say, okay, here's a moment in time, what's being shown. Here's a moment in time, what's being shown. In fact, I probably have an example of an exposure sheet downloaded somewhere. I don't remember where though, because I don't think I have. Oh yeah, I do. I actually have an exposure sheet right here, so. And go away. I can't get that thing to turn off. This is an exposure sheet, or a version of an exposure sheet. Every company and every animation studio out there kind of has their own version of it, but it basically follows these basic steps. You have kind of your information up at the top of what this exposure sheet's for. So you have your scene, how many frames it's going to be, field, background, stuff like that. The production, page number, animator, all that kind of stuff. That's just general information. But down here you have your actual information that you want to have that partakes to what we're doing. So you have the action being performed, which you would write that, you would type out, okay, what you're having done. You have if there's any sound effects going on. And then this number thing is the number of frame, the frame that you're on. So this is frame 1, frame 2. A frame is just a single moment in time. You'll notice whenever you're playing games and you're always complaining about your FPS dropping, your frames per second. Frames. A single moment within an amount of time. And animations usually go by the frame per second of either... the general FPS is either 12 frames per second or 24 frames per second. Most animations aren't going to be, especially original like 2D animation, aren't going to go above that, the 24, because at that point it just gets a little weird. You're adding so much extra work of so many extra frames that you're not going to even use that it doesn't really matter. But yeah, most animations are between 12 and 24, so just kind of keep that in mind. But then yeah, you have bunch of different information here. You have all the different things that you might need to put down. Like I said, every chart's gonna be a little different per company. I don't know what these 1, 2, 3, 4s are for this one. I would have to go find the web page for this and read what all of these are. But then you might also put down, like, if you need to do like mouth syncing, like lip syncing, and let's say this thing here, you could put this as phonemes or as phonemes or whatever the frick that word is. The sounds you make with your mouth to pronounce a word. So for like the shape of the mouth for saying you would have to have different things for e. You would do like an e sound, eu, you. When you say you make the e phoneme or the mouth shape, and then you make an mouth shape. And so you would write that down, and you would say how long of a frames, depending on how long they spoke it. So this is the old way of doing it, and this is how Clip Studio actually does it. This is what Clip Studio's methods work because, well, actually, I'm going to save a little bit of that to the end. So I can actually get rid of this timesheet because I have a workspace to open that up, which all it does is add it down here. These are your animation cells, and I believe this is also a lightbox system. I've never messed with it, so I don't really know what it does, and it's not really that important in this frame of reference here. But yeah, so that's the timeline. The timeline works like this. I have to actually add some stuff, so let me see if I actually have one of my old... Do I have one? Yes, I do. I have scene 3. Let's open up scene 3, which is something I was working on. So this is actually technically a finished piece of animation. In fact, I should actually show you some of the settings when you hit new. When you hit new and you go to the new thing called animation, this is where all your settings go. You have your file name. You have a bunch of really good presets. I would say stick to these presets. These presets are really good and very helpful. The only time I would deviate from them is if you have a specific thing that you're doing, like a specific type of animation where you need a little extra space to kind of draw from. But basically this for 1080p, you have your height and width. Resolution, you can kind of leave it at 192. If you want to bump it up, you can, but it really doesn't do anything because resolutions is dots per inch, but we're working in pixels, so it doesn't really matter all that much. This is what your what your layout's going to look like. You can see over here. You can see it in my screen. You have the blue bar, which is the actual like 1080 by 1920 by 1080. Down here, you'll see blank space. That's what that white area is that's going around it. You want that so that when you're drawing, you don't have to worry about the edge and going, ah, crap, well, I want to make sure I can follow that animation through. So in order to follow the animation through, you want to go past the edge, so give yourself a little bit of space to work with. I found that these numbers work really well, but you can increase them or decrease them as you see fit or as you need. These things here, I've never really messed with all that much. The effect frame and the draw size, I've never really messed with. I know effect frame is basically these little guidelines. As you can see, there's a little center mark. There's a center mark there, there, and there. They're helpful, so if you want to use them, use them. I just happen to not have used them. In fact, I'm just going to leave those on, because why not? Over here, you have your story information. So you have your story name, your number of stories. You can do the setting the file name automatically based on the information you give them here. Manage files using folders. I probably should have checked that when I did all my other stuff. I wish I had checked that because, man, that is convenient sometimes. But that's only if you're doing a lot of scenes all at once within one kind of system. You have your timeline name, which is basically the name down here. You should name that. I should have named that Scene 3 for this one. I didn't because I was just being goofy. Your frame rate, stick to either 12 or 24. You can go up higher if you want, but at that point it gets a little weird, especially if you're doing it this way, and I'll explain in a little bit. Your playback time, that's how many frames the total scene's gonna be. You have your scene number. That's which number scene this is, I believe. I don't think it increases the amount of scenes you have. This is just the specific scene you're on. I think. Don't quote me on that. I haven't really gone through it. You'll have to do a little trial and error on that. You have your shot number. Again, I believe this is all just information. It doesn't actually affect things. So if this is a specific shot within a scene, you would put which number it is. The division lines, again, I've not really messed with a lot of that, so I don't know what a lot of that is. You have your set timeline name automatically, which before, it just takes the information you've given it and gives it a name based on the information. You have some templates that you can make. You have your shot template, which is the whole thing, the whole scene going on. And then you have cell templates, which I'll explain what cells are in a moment. These templates, it doesn't come with any inherently, but you can go to the asset store on Clip Studio's asset store, and they actually have some for free and some that you can pay for. I think I have one. If I click on animation, yeah, I have one. I have an animation layout sketch, but that would be more for a cell anyway. But you can get some templates if you want. So that's all your basic information stuff of like creating a new file. So I don't have to create a new file because I already have one right here. And I'll go over just really quickly what all this stuff is. So now it also added some new types of layers, and that's what I'm going to go over right now. First type of layer is an animation folder, which is this thing. It's different than a normal folder. Animation folder basically is like a switch folder. So as you scrub through the timeline here, you can see the timeline right down here, and each one of these is a frame. And as you can see, you can actually see as it's moving, it's animating. So this is Goku kind of squatting to power up kind of thing. And basically what happens is when you're going through it, if you look on over on the side, or actually, right there above my camera, you see how those are moving? Basically what it does is you set which frame a layer is going to be on, one of these layers is going to be on, and what the computer says is, okay, on frame 2, or on frame 4, I have it set to switch to cell, which I'll tell you what a cell is, cell 2. And then it does, and so you visually see it switch. And so even though these are all technically turned on, the only one that's going to be seen inside the folder is going to be the one that the timeline tells it to be seen. Now you have to do it this way. You have to use animation folders. If you just use regular folders, it's not going to work with the timeline. The timeline is specifically set up to work within these folders. If you just start making pictures outside of them and make your own folder, it's not going to work because it's not going to be set up properly. You're going to have a bunch of like layers down here, like in your timeline. You're going to have a bunch of annoying spaces here. Like, see all these layers here? You're going to have a bunch of these things set up for different aspects that you're really not going to want. And it's going to get confusing. It's going to get really confusing. So keep everything inside animation folders. As you can see here, I have 3. I have my inks, which is the ink. Basically, I have my inks layer. I have my colors layer, and then I have my shadows layer. You do those all in separate layers, or at least I do. I know if you do it like this, if you have anti-aliasing turned off so that everything is a nice solid color, or a solid like pixelated color, then you can get away with just filling it. I don't like doing that. Just personally, I like to keep everything separate, so if I need to make a quick change, I can make it to just the layer that it needs to be on. Okay, so what are cells? Animation cells are each of these individual pieces. In the old days, a cell referred to a clear plastic paper, basically. It was a clear plastic paper where they would use a machine to etch in the black outline of the final piece. So I would draw it, I would ink it on paper, they would put the paper in a machine, and it would embed, basically, or etch the black line work into the cell itself, so that it would be a permanent black. So when you took the cell off, you would see all the black lines, but you could still see through it. Then they would paint on the back all the colors that you would need. Actually, kind of like how I do here, how I have the paints or the colors and shadows all on a separate layer. In this order too. You would do any of your, I believe you do all your dark, no, they always did light colors first, and then they would do their dark colors, but they would do it exactly. So you see here how I filled my colors all the way in? They wouldn't do that. They would have put just this section here, they would paint that in, and then they would paint the dark over top of that, and it would show through, so you would see the different layers. And then they would basically put it on a camera machine and take a picture. Then take that one off, put a new one on, which is the next frame, take a picture. And then they would just keep doing that over and over again until you had a full animation. In this case, as you can see, I have it set up so that, you know, cell 1 stays for 3 frames, and then on frame 4, it switches to cell 2, that stays for 2 frames. Cell 3, or frame 6 is cell 3 for 3 frames, and then it goes to cell 4 for like 3 frames. And figuring out how long a cell should stay on a frame, that's up to you and how smooth you want the animation to be. I could easily add more frames if I wanted to smooth it out even more, but I think for this animation, it just works that way. Like, I just think it works really well. It looks just fine. But yeah. Clip Studio Paint really does do this the old-fashioned way. Quick little thing about the controls. It does have some of the controls set. I believe these two are automatically set, which is next and previous cell is 1 and 2. So if I hit 2, goes to the next cell. Hit 2 again, next cell, next cell, next cell, next cell, next cell. It's not going frame by frame though, it's going for each cell. So if there was a large gap, like which I don't have anywhere, yeah. So let's say I had a cell over here, like way the heck over here, and I were to hit, if I was starting here and I were to jump and I were to hit next cell, even if the cell's all the way over here, it would jump over to the next cell, ignoring all those other frames. So just keep that in mind, that it will ignore stuff like that. So that's how that works. It doesn't have frames. What I had to do is I went in, and right here you have move frame. I had to add my own. I added Alt 1 and Alt 2 for a specific reason. If I have to hit 1 and 2 to do this, well, why not make it so that if I want to go frame by frame, I can just hold Alt. My hand's already down there. Now I can just do that. And I can go left and right without having to move my hand at all. Also, a thing that I added personally was 3. 3 does this, a new animation cell. So when you're within a folder, which here I'll make a new animation. So let's say I'm in an animation folder. There's the cell. So let's say I just quickly, I drew a thing on that cell. All right, so I want to create a new cell. So I go over to the frame I want to make a cell by holding Alt and 2. I just knew that. I hit 3, automatically creates a brand new cell. It names it for you. So if the first cell is always going to be named 1, the next cell is going to be named 2, and then 3, and then 4. If you happen to do something, okay, actually here. So you do that. I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, let's just go there. 1, 2, 3. Blah, blah, blah. 1, 2, up. And that's how you do that. So now you're probably wondering, well, how do I see what I drew previously? Do I have to keep doing this and going back and going, oh, wait, no, I didn't like the way that looked. Oh, wait, no, I didn't like the, you know. No, they have a thing called onion skin. That's that little thing right now, enable onion skin. All onion skin does is it shows you the previous and next frames in front of the frame you're on. So if I go to the next cell, the black one is the one you're on, blue is behind, green is forward. So that's all you need to know about that is blue's behind, green's forward. Very simple. Also, a lot of the buttons for the animation stuff is right here, so you can make a new cell right here. You can specify a cell and stuff like that. You can create a new animation folder. That's just these things, so if you need to make a new animation folder, you just click that, and then you have a new animation folder. And you see, when you have onion skin turned on, it only applies to the folder you're in. So if you're not in a folder that has any specifics, then it doesn't really matter. Ooh. Also, to move things around in the timeline, you just click on the cell and you can instantly drag things around to change their exposure and stuff like that. So it's very simple. If you want to do stuff like that, you can easily... to change its actual exposure like that, you have to go up to that little mark there, and you can change the length of that exposure so it'll go away if you want it to. Just hover your mark on the very end there like that, and you can shorten the exposure of this specific cell, or this specific folder, so that it ends right there, and then you can easily just kind of... You can easily go over here and add another thing, and then, oh, it's gone. And then I think if you add a thing there, it'll add a blank space. So if you wanted to have a blank for whatever reason, you can do that. That's how you use stuff like that. It's not really that complicated. But I guess the thing I need to talk about now are some of the limitations with this program, or with the way to do this. There are no real advanced features. Like you can't add audio to it, which is a shame. But this program, I feel, is not designed to be used on its own. You could use it on its own. You could do it like the old, you can't use it on its own entirely because you do need to add audio, you would need a video editor. But you can do all of your basic frame by frame animation here, including coloring it, you can do stuff like that. But you would have to supplement this with another program, like a video editor, to do stuff like layering your special effects. So I wouldn't do any of the special effects here with everything else going on behind it. I would do it to where you render out the special effects later and add them in through through a video editor. Adding audio, you would have to do through a video editor or other animation software. And then putting everything together, adding the background. You can add the background here, but you can't move the backgrounds around properly the way that you would think like you would like to, because it doesn't animate frames of motion. Meaning I can't animate me tweening. Tweening is when you take an image and instead of drawing the next frame, you simply go to the next frame and move the thing over. And the program knows, oh, you moved it over. Okay, but it was here originally in this frame. So in this frame, it's still here. But on this frame, it's going to be over here. It will not do that. It does not do that. That's not what this is for. I believe in Japan, they use this they do use this, but they use it in ties with another program. In fact, they have a program called Retos, which is a software suite. It has a bunch of different programs. That's the animation software that the professionals use in Japan. But they also have Clip Studio Action, which has all those extra features that you would want. It's just not over here yet because I guess they just don't see the demand yet, even though it would sell over here because they have their flagship animation program called Moho Studio. Great program, by the way. I was using that in my other animations, and I use that to put everything together. So I would do all my frames here and put it over there because Moho Studio is mainly for puppet animation, which is fine. I want to do puppet animation too, but I want the option to do frame by frame if I want, and the frame by frame on Moho is kind of crap, mainly because it doesn't have any drawing tools, any real drawing tools. Like I can't grab a pencil and, you know, sit here and sketch like I would here, where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna sketch my character and, you know, have his eyes and blah blah blah, and doing, you know, I can't easily set up a sketch like I can with this. Like there, I sketched that. In Moho Studio, you can't really do that because it works vector only. It only works in vector. If you know what vector is, you know why that would be a bit of a kind of annoyance, because I can't get this nice texture here. I can't get that nice difference in texture like I would with a, thought I got rid of that, with a pen. Anyway, great software. What it has in limitations, it makes up for by saying, hey, if you want to do frame by frame animation the way they used to and the way they still do today with drawing each frame, well, why not use the program you're comfortable drawing with? Like if you're using, like Photoshop has something very similar. Use the program you're comfortable with to do the drawing, and then use another software that you're comfortable with video editing to do all that stuff, so you could do all your lip syncing there. To do lip syncing, it's very simple. You record the audio first, like the dialogue. That's always recorded before this stage, pretty much. At least for any time there's going to be talking. They always say that until after the dialogue's been recorded. And they usually try to keep, when they record the audio, they try to keep it timed the way they want it to in the script. They try to time it, but they allow for a little bit of breathing room here and there if they need to. But they'll just make you redo the line and say, can you do that line but do it a little shorter or a little faster or stuff like that? But yeah, it's not that big of a problem. You would just have to do that. You would have to time it out by saying, okay, what frame, which you can do in a lot of with a lot of audio editing programs. They'll let you do it by absolute frames. So you can say, okay, he's saying it from here to here. Oh, let me hear it, and then I can do it, and then I draw it, and then go, okay, he's saying, and you just have to figure it out. You get used to it as you keep going. It's not that difficult once you actually just practice it a few times. So that's all I wanted to show. I just wanted to show you that quick little thing. As you see here, I'm doing it over here. In fact, with the lip syncing, I had to lip sync for this part right here. Him going down like that and then closing his mouth, because in the original clip, he goes, ha! And that's it. He just makes a quick little ha noise. So right here, he goes, you know, ha! And then he closes his teeth, and then he just kind of grunts the rest of the way for the rest of this. So yeah, I just had to figure that out. I timed it out, figured it, and boom. It wasn't even that hard. It wasn't actually that difficult. I timed it out very easily. So yeah. That's all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see some more stuff on animation as I get better and as I keep learning, I can take you along the process of what I'm learning and pass it on. Let me know in the comments. Subscribe so that you can see more of my content, of course. If you'd like to support me in any other ways, links in the description to Patreon, to Ko-fi, that whole donating crap, and stuff like that. You can also check out my live streams. I have a link in my Picarto where you can follow me there when I do live streaming. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later!